Hey guys, good morning, presumably. Uh, I hope everybody's doing well. I certainly uh, miss you guys and am glad that I have an opportunity to contact you in this weird way. Uh, but nonetheless, that's the best we can do right now. I hope everyone's doing well and is staying safe and staying sane. Those are both equally challenging. Um, what I'm going to do this morning, I'm just going to, as best as I can, continue our Sunday school lessons, which we were going through church history. And my goal is to keep these as short as possible because, let's be real, how long can you really watch a video about church history? So my goal is to keep these as short as possible, which means we won't really be able to cover as much. So we're going to move a little bit slower than suppose we already were. This morning, so we were in the 4th century before, and we were actually going to do the two-parter for the 4th century. We just talked about Constantine and the Council of Nicaea and how that is important not only in that day, but how it affects us today in this understanding of how church and state operate with each other. So we're going to actually do part 2 of the 4th century, and we're going to talk about a man named Augustine. And Augustine's actually such a big deal. We're going to do a two-parter for Augustine. So this is technically part 1 of part 2 of Augustine. So there we go. Just something else for you to get confused about. You just can't get away from math, guys. So Augustine is one of those giants of the Christian faith, maybe the giant.
Oh, my goodness!
No one would write more than him until Aquinas in the 13th century. So for the next 900 years, it is Augustine. He's the guy. And all we're going to talk about today is just a little bit about him. His conversion story. That's all we're going to talk about today. So Aquinas, he was born in 354 AD in North Africa, which is modern-day Algeria, to a pagan father and a Christian mother. From the age of 18 to 32, he jumped around to multiple philosophical groups. You know, once you graduate high school, you just got to go see the world, I guess. One of the more stranger ones being that there was this group he was a part of that you should eat as many melons as possible. That was it. That was the whole philosophy. The secret to happiness was just to eat more melons. So safe to say he was open to anything. He was trying everything out. And eventually he decides to become a professor of rhetoric in Milan, which is in northern Italy, under a man named Ambrose, who was the bishop of Milan at the time. And one day in 386 AD, which that puts him at 32 years old, as he's walking the campus gardens, he hears a boy shout, "Tolle lege," which means pick up and read. It's Latin. And for some reason, he was like, oh, yeah, it's a great idea. I should pick up and read. But he had a problem. He didn't have any books with him, so what's he going to do? Well, he just looked around for the closest book, and of course, it would be the Bible. It was on a table that he was walking by, and he opened it up to Romans 13:14, which said, "Put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires." And when he read that, he said he was converted. We get all this information from his autobiography called The Confessions.
These are my confessions.
He said when he read that, he was converted. He trusted Christ and gave up his old life. He no longer sought to gratify the desires of the flesh, but to put on the Lord Jesus Christ. In his autobiography, he actually credits his mom's prayers and Ambrose's kindness also for his conversion, that's going to be the application for this week, is that you never know what God is going to do when you're faithful and you're obeying him, even in the most smallest manners. I mean, as simply as his mom praying for him. Think of the years. He's 30, what did we say? He's 32 at this point. Think of how many years his mom was praying, perhaps daily, for him, while he's trying to shove as many melons in his mouth as he can. Like, think of the just the daily, the patience, the persistence that, and the faithfulness that his mother showed to continue to pray to God for her son Augustine. And then think of Ambrose, who is the bishop and his mentor. Just his kindness. That's he credits Ambrose's kindness to his conversion. And you just never know what God's going to do with your small acts of kindness. We are people of the book, but we're called to act out that word as well. And you just never know what God's going to do with it.
So what do we do?
What are you going to do, Joe?
A lot of times your actions will open the door for you to preach the word to people. So we're called to be people of action as well as people of the book. All right, guys, that's a quick bio of Augustine. Next week, we'll continue our discussion on Augustine, and we'll look at possibly his major confrontation that he had during his life against a man named Pelagian. So tune in for that next week. Again, miss you guys. Hope to hear from you sometime this week, and I hope this Lord's Day is a blessing and a rest for you. Love you guys.